I'm scrolling TikTok at 3 a.m. because my nervous system's too fucked to go to sleep and I feel too anxious to put my phone down. Is that why I'm having an existential crisis? There are always going to be a million other things you could have decided to do. I'm broken. Back again. Podmas. Before we get started, I want to recommend a Christmas film for you in the keeping of Podmas. Wait, should probably check this angle before I just start recording. Yeah, I think it's fine. My sister and I watched a new Christmas film. Well, I think it's new. It was new to me. I'd never seen it before. It's with Anna Kendrick in it. It's called Noel. And if you haven't seen it, talking of Christmas, obviously, Bart is here. So it's basically about Santa and Santa's lineage. So Santa dies and his kind of Santa hat is passed down to his son, but his son really doesn't want to be Santa. His son wants to be a yoga teacher, and you can kind of see throughout that his daughter Noelle, Anna Kendrick, clearly wants to be Santa, and she's got all of the kind of traits that would be amazing to be Santa. She's got the twinkle, I think they call it, but because she's a woman and because she's a girl, they're like, God, girls can't be Santa. Santa has a beard. Santa's a man. They obviously don't let her be Santa Claus, and it's basically about that, and it's kind of like Santa meets feminism, and I loved it. I thought it was really fun. I don't know if it has good reviews or if everyone's like, it's terrible, but I thought it was really funny. So that's a recommendation from me. Been really getting into the Christmas spirit. Also, talking of Christmas spirit, my dad, so we put our Christmas decorations up. I mean, they're definitely already up now. I'm recording these a little bit before Podmas, so I'm looking at the dates trying to figure out. We put ours up the weekend before December. So that's going to be 5 weeks too early. Now, if you look on the internet, in my mind, everyone has their Christmas decorations up. Literally everyone has their Christmas decorations up. Everyone on Instagram, I'm seeing Christmas trees. If you go in any shop, all the shops have got their Christmas decorations up. Everyone's got their trees up. Sent my dad a pic of us putting up the Christmas decorations. He was like, you can be bored of them by Christmas. It's not even December yet. What are you putting them up for? Absolute Grinch. But it made me think, is this too early? I mean, I think normally in my mind, it's okay, as soon as it's December, you can put them up. We thought we'd put them up a bit early. I just think Christmas things just make everything 1% more sparkly and 1% more fun. There's so much shit in the world, okay? There's so much negativity. There's so many terrible things going on at the moment. If you can put a fucking Christmas tree up and it can make everybody 1% more happy, why would we not do that? Why would we not do things that make us joyous and bring gratitude? Should we be grateful for our families, and should we be treating each other to gifts, and should we be celebrating our lives every single day? Obviously, yes, but as is the human condition, we do not do that. And so I think, I used to be a bit of a Scrooge, and I was like, oh, Christmas is just about commercialism, and it's just like a product of capitalism, and it just encourages everyone to overconsume. Do I still believe all of those things? Yes. But I also think, how cute is this mug? Why not? Every time I put tea into this mug, I think, that's nice. And then when I hear a Christmas song, I think, this is fun. Why not do things that are nice? What is the point otherwise in the grand scheme of things? Surely we should just be doing everything we possibly can to have as much fun and just have a nice life, surely. How profound. Anyway, not sure why I started talking about that. Christmas. Let's do the check-in, shall we? Let's do our check-in. Now, like I said, I've been recording these a little bit in advance, and so when I'm actually recording this episode, Podmas has not started yet. So I keep telling you, put a prompt in the jar, everyone. You guys haven't been doing that because you haven't seen these episodes yet. So the jar is dwindling away. But I'm hoping, I'll put some more in here soon, and I'm hoping once we start Podmas, which, I mean, it's already started now, so this kind of doesn't make sense, we're going to have some more prompts in there soon. So I'm excited about that. So let's do this one. Oh, this is a long one. This is a fucking 5,000 word essay. Can you see that? Let me read it first. I normally hold it up and read it, but I don't think I'll be able to remember it all. Okay. Half of your problems are just your mind making minor things seem major. What are you overemphasizing right now? And this was taken from James Clear's newsletter. James Clear from Atomic Habits, obviously. Productivity king. What problems, or what are you overemphasizing right now? So most of our problems, or a lot of our problems, are just our minds making things seem bigger than they actually are and our problems seem bigger than they actually are. What am I overemphasizing right now? Okay, this is perfect. In keeping with this podmas and me doing this podcast and talking loads, I am overemphasizing. I don't know if this is overemphasizing. Maybe you can help me with this. I keep having these kind of blocks whenever I sit down to film, or whether I'm scripting episodes or coming up with ideas for episodes, because I keep thinking these episodes are not valuable enough. Like, nothing I'm saying is profound. And I'll write out an episode and I'll script something and I'll come up with an idea and I'll start writing about it and I'll just write some notes. And I think, this is not groundbreaking, this is not profound, this is not super interesting. But then I think about all of the episodes and like the podcast that I'm like an avid fan of, Call Her Daddy, Goes Without Saying. And I listen to these and I'm like, they don't always have to say profound things and like super insightful things for me to be really engaged with them. I listen to them whether they're talking about feminism and politics or whether they're telling stories about their personal lives and their boyfriends. But for some reason, for myself, I have this expectation for myself that if I'm not saying something profound and it's not this like life-changing thing, that it's absolutely pointless and I shouldn't put it out and nobody wants to listen. So I think I'm overemphasizing right now how profound, God, I take a shot every time I say profound, I am going to say it one more time and then I promise I'll never say it again, how profound my episodes have to be. And I think I'm just trying to find this balance. Sorry, I keep looking at the camera because I'm not sure if I like the way this is, like this angle, but I mean, it's a bit late now. Oh, where was I going? I felt like I was making a good point, or I feel like I was about to have you be my therapist for a moment. I feel like I'm trying to find this balance between putting out content that I like and I'm proud of, but also not being a perfectionist about it and not having everything I say need to be the most insightful, important, groundbreaking piece of information at all times. I guess I'm just trying to find like my space with this podcast and how far on the kind of, or where on the lifestyle, entertainment and personal development spectrum it is, like where it lays between entertaining and personal development, education, where this podcast kind of lays. That's what I'm trying to figure out. And so I think I'm just putting too much emphasis on that, and I think it's causing me a lot of stress. Whereas I could just be like, okay, what do I want to talk about? How can I connect with you? What topics could I talk about that are going to connect me more with the people that I want to listen to this and I want to join this community? Thank you for that. Thank you for listening. Oh my God, that one really helped. I really like that. What I'm going to start doing is taking pictures of these and sharing them on the We're All Like Other Girls Instagram. So every episode we do these prompts, but I will share them on the Instagram so you can kind of like take them I guess you could just re-listen to this episode and write it down for yourself. Anyway, what are we going to talk about? Okay. Oh, my battery's just... Okay, let me change the battery for this camera, for fuck's sake. Oh, look at that lighting. Thumbnail. The topic that I kind of had in mind to talk about today is being someone who always feels left out and kind of being the girl in the group who feels like never enough or always feels like a little bit disconnected, kind of in keeping with the I'm not like other girls. I think this can kind of affirm the feeling of I'm not like other girls, but I don't think that's actually what it is. So I have always been the girl in... I feel like I wonder if this is kind of looking back on it now, I wonder if this was almost like a form of self-sabotage. And you know how we kind of attract situations to confirm the beliefs that we have about ourselves. I wonder if I attracted these situations to do that. I've always had a lot of like throuple friendships. Historically, and by historically I mean in school, my friendships have always been in like thruples, strangely enough. But again, as we go into this, maybe it's not that strange. I have always felt like the one in the thruple who isn't quite as connected, like always like I'm the one that's kind of fighting for the attention and the other two have always been really connected. I've always been like the one a little bit on the outskirts, like really trying, almost like the imposter of like, should I be in this throuple? Like, do these guys want me there? That's kind of how I've always felt in high school. And like high school, God, I really spent far too long in America. I need to come back to my English roots, secondary school. So yeah, I've always felt like the one who's a bit left out. And that has definitely, not the throuple thing, but the idea of like feeling like the one who is kind of left out has definitely come with me through adulthood. So I have this story, and I was probably anywhere between 5 and 7. Now, I don't know if I just have a really bad memory, or I also read that this is quite a sign of, or people who have disorganized attachment style often experience this, like blanks in memory of their childhood. I think it's also like a symptom of like traumatic experiences, but I haven't really had any like big traumatic experiences in my childhood. But maybe I just have a terrible memory, have very bad memories of my childhood. Like my sister will say something and she'll be like, oh, do you remember when this happened? And I'll be like, no, like I do not remember that happening. And so like I just famously have a bad memory and I don't remember many things, but I have such a strong memory. I was in primary school and I had a best friend and she lived across the road from me, or across the road from me and my sisters. So we always used to play out together and we were just like best friends. It was just always me and her. We went to school together. We were in the same class together. We always used to play together. It was fine. And then one day before school, she took me. I can remember this so clearly. You know when you can remember, like you can literally picture it in your mind. Like I could close my eyes and see the whole scene play out. She took me and it was before school started and she sat me on this bench and she was like, can I talk to you? And I was like, yeah, of course you can talk to me. We sat down and she said, look, Polly, I don't want to be your best friend anymore. I want to be best friends with another girl. And she named this other girl. I'm not going to name names because we live in a small town and the likelihood is the TikTok algorithms will send this out to those people because that has already happened to my TikToks. It just sends them out to people that I don't necessarily, I just think when you put stuff on the internet, you imagine strangers seeing it, but you don't imagine the people that you know seeing it, okay? So I'm not going to name names. And I remember, and I was like blindsided by this. This was an absolute shock because we were best friends. We used to have sleepovers. This was a betrayal. And then so she went and was best friends now with this other girl that obviously at the time could not appreciate the nuances of friendship and the fact that you could have maybe more than one best friend at a time. But anyway, that was like a traumatic experience. And I remember sitting on the bench and crying. And funnily enough, one of my mum's best friends used to work at the school. And I remember her coming over to me and sitting with me and giving me a hug. And I told her this recently. And she was like, obviously, I don't remember this. But this was a core memory of my childhood, the core trauma of my childhood. Oh, I just got a notification, a too good to go notification. Nothing today. Okay, that's rude. So anyway, so that was like a core memory for me. And I do wonder if that was kind of the start of me appreciating the transient nature of friendships and appreciating the fact that sometimes the people that you love choose to love other people. And I know that's a very dramatic taking from such a, in hindsight, unimportant experience. But at the time, it felt humiliating and it felt enormous. And then I think ever since then, I don't want to be like ever since then, like that was like a pivotal experience of my life. But I do feel like throughout my kind of teenage years, I've not struggled with friendships because I've always had friends, but I have always had this feeling of like being the odd one out and like feeling left out in friendships. But I had a really interesting experience recently when I was in New York that kind of made me realize, and I will tell you, that made me realize that I have managed to transcend a lot of these feelings or these fears. Oh, I'll tell you what happened. So I was in New York and you know I love the 1975. And when I was in the US, if you're following me on Instagram through the US, I went to a lot of 1975 gigs and I meet a lot of people through these. And so throughout the few months, I went to kind of probably like 5 or 6 shows up until I went to New York. And basically all of the people, pretty much 80% of the people that I'd met through the 1975, through the internet, were going to be at these Madison Square Garden shows. And so this was going to be a big fucking meetup. Now, I'm like a little English girl. Most of these girls are from the US, okay? And I've just come over. So we decide to meet and everyone's kind of like connecting and we're like, right, let's get to the show a bit early. Everyone's like, look, we're all going to kind of meet up, take pics, whatever. So we go to the show and I get there quite a bit early and then all of a sudden people start funneling in and somehow all of a sudden there's like 30 of us probably there, maybe a bit less, maybe 20. There's like 20 of us there. Most of these people know each other more closely than I did. And most of these people, a lot of them kind of hang out outside of these shows, whereas because I had only come out to the US recently and most of them were from there, I hadn't hung out with them apart from at these shows. So I didn't know everyone super well, apart from like a few tweets here and there and like seeing them at the shows. And there was a moment where we were all kind of stood around waiting for the show to begin. So there's like music on in the background, but mainly everyone's chatting. And everyone's kind of chatting in their 2s and 3s. And I realised I'm stood there alone. And I'm also sober. And a lot of the people there were not sober. And obviously, when you've got a bit of liquid courage, it's easier to kind of put yourself into groups and just kind of take up space, I think. But I was sober. And I remember standing there surrounded by groups of people very close to me. Like we were all kind of in close proximity that I knew but wasn't super close with. And it seemed like, and I say it seemed like very intentionally, everyone was kind of talking and connecting with each other, and I was stood there alone. And I realized in that moment, a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, maybe even like closer than that, maybe like 6 months ago, this would have felt very, very uncomfortable for me. And I would be like, oh God, nobody's talking to me. I need to go and join a group. I need to go and like insert myself somewhere so it doesn't look awkward. So I'm not stood here alone, not chatting to anyone and everyone thinks I'm like a loser. I'm not in the group. I'm not as cool as everyone in the group. But I stood there and I thought, do you know what? It doesn't really matter. And maybe just in this moment, everyone's just enjoying their conversations. And it doesn't really mean anything about me that I'm not in a conversation right now. I can just stand here and appreciate that everyone's having a nice time. And it made me realize that you really can see things differently and you really get to decide how you see situations. Another thing, I went to the Call Her Daddy show. I went to the Call Her Daddy live show in, oh my God, I just realized I have a hole in my slipper. Okay, not the end of the world in the grand scheme of things. I went to the Call Her Daddy live show in Philadelphia. Same situation. I commented on the Instagram page saying, is anyone going to the Philadelphia show? Because I wanted to go with someone. I find it fun. Turns out there was like a group of 30 people going. So we all went for dinner to this Mexican restaurant before the show. Got there. The entire table, this is like worst case scenario, okay? So when you think of like turning up to a group of people where you don't know anybody, like bearing in mind, I had not spoken to any of these people. I'd just been joined to a group and they were like, we're meeting at this restaurant. So I was like, okay, fuck it, I'll come. Turned up, I got there a little bit, not late, but the time was kind of like, okay, let's meet between 5:30 and 6. So I got there at like 5:50 because I didn't want to be the first one there, but I didn't want to be late. Like I'm anti-late, like will never be late. If you and I ever meet in real life, just know that I will never be late. So I got there at 5:50. The entire table was filled apart from one seat on the end, okay? And so I turn up and everyone's like, hi. But in your mind, the alarm bells start going off. Oh God, everyone already knows each other. Everyone's already here. I'm the odd one out. Everyone already knows each other. Everyone's kind of sitting, chatting, everyone's talking already, and nobody knows me. I'm new. I'm just going to go and sit awkwardly on the end. That's what I could have thought, okay? That would be the alarm bells. But I arrived and I was like, do you know what? Most of these people don't know each other either. And so I went and I sat on the end of the table and I struck up a conversation with the people on the edge that I was around, and it was fine. And then other people came in individually, and in my mind I was like, okay, those people feel exactly the same way about me. I am sat here now and it looks like, oh, we're all best friends and we're all connecting so much and we're all laughing and we're all having a good time, and the new person's come in and thought, oh God, everyone's best friends. I've just got there 2 minutes ago. And so I think the point I guess I'm trying to make that I didn't realize I was trying to make but have kind of come upon is it's mainly in your mind. Most of the time, 90% of the time, people aren't intentionally leaving you out. Even if it feels like they are, you can see it. Like in every situation, you could be like, oh God, everyone's leaving me out. I'm the odd one out. I'm not like any of these people. I don't have anything in common. Everyone likes everyone else more than they like me. They're obviously already having a good time. Or you can see it as, okay, all of these individual people, especially if you're in a situation where a lot of you don't know each other. I guess there's two situations. One, if pretty much nobody knows each other, everyone's just faking it. If you are thinking about going to something where there's going to be a lot of people who don't know each other and you're like, God, that's going to be so awkward because nobody knows each other and I'm not going to know anyone and I'm going to feel left out and I'm not going to know what to say and I'm going to be stood on my own like a lemon. If nobody knows each other, pretty much everybody is feeling that way. And when you walk into a room and everyone's like chatting and laughing, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're having like the best time ever. Like I said, I was sat on the end of that table in Philadelphia. People came into the room and they would be like, oh my God, all of those girls like best friends, they knew each other. I'd literally met these girls 5 minutes ago. And then the other situation is if you guys are all friends and you're feeling kind of left out and you're in a big group and maybe you start feeling left out, people aren't talking to you, maybe they're connecting with each other. I think it's important to remember that we are all just human. And okay, maybe people are having a conversation and you're the one left out of the conversation. You're not super in the conversation. Maybe it's just nice for them in this moment to be having a connection with that person. And maybe they're just human and maybe they also feel a bit socially awkward and uncomfortable. And so it's easier for them to stay connected with the person that they're talking to rather than reach out and try and bring you in because that feels easier for them. And maybe they're a little bit socially awkward and anxious and they're just trying to feel comfortable and like they fit in as well. I think that's what everyone's trying to do in social situations. We all want to feel comfortable, a part of something, like we're wanted, like people want us to be in that group. I don't know if this is making any sense or is coherent in any way, but let's continue on. Point is, it's often in your mind. Can you see these situations differently? Can you see it from their perspective? Can you appreciate that maybe what you think is going on and what you think is people leaving you out is maybe something different? Maybe it's not that deep. Maybe it's not as about you as you think it is. Like obviously for you, it's always about you. You are the main character in your life, but for other people, you're not the main character. Okay, another point I want to make is, and this has been very true in my life, do you believe yourself worthy of being in that group or friends with that person? Whether you're feeling left out like from an individual person or feeling left out from in a group, if you don't believe subconsciously, unconsciously, within your mind, like truly, that you are worthy of being friends with this person and deem yourself worthy as a friend and as a human being and as someone who would be a valued friend or part of a conversation, then you will subconsciously look for confirmation that you are not worthy of being in that conversation, and you will look for confirmation that you don't fit in. So if you truly believe, like if your innate belief is that you are a person who is not interesting, who does not fit in, who people don't want to be friends with, then you will not put yourself in situations that allow you to fit in and make friends. And you will constantly use situations to confirm those beliefs about yourself. So for example, if you're in a conversation with someone and maybe you're in like a 3, you've gone to a party and you don't really know that many people here and you're kind of mingling, maybe you're talking in a 3 and the 2 people that you're talking to are kind of seem to be like hitting it off a bit more than you. If you believe that you are worthy of being there, you are a just as valid of a person in that conversation as those 2 other people, you will think, okay, these people are just having more of a conversation than me right now. Maybe they are more interested in the topic of conversation. They have more to say. That's fine. You won't make it about you. If you don't believe that you are a valid member of that conversation, if you don't believe you're worthy of being there, whatever the beliefs you have about yourself, if you don't believe you fit into this, you will instead, that exact same conversation, the thoughts you tell yourself will be, look, I never fit in anywhere. Every time I have conversations, I always get left out. I always have nothing to say in conversations. This is proof that I never have anything interesting to say and people aren't interested in talking to me. And so do you see how it's kind of always in your mind? And so I think that's why it's so important with every situation, to be honest, to be like, okay, could I see this differently? Am I seeing this objectively? Am I seeing this actually as it's happening? Is there a different way I could be looking at this? We don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. And so if you constantly feel like I don't fit in, people aren't interested in me, maybe it's less about like people not being interested in you and more about working on your belief system that you are an interesting person and that you are worthy of being there, and fixing that first. And then as a result, you will begin to feel more of a sense of like belonging and validity and worthiness whenever you're kind of in a conversation or around people. Like, I think I've told this story before, but one of my friends, B, I lived with her for a long time, and a few months into us living together, before we kind of knew each other, like we moved in together as flatmates and then became friends. And once we were kind of talking, and I think I was telling her about, I was kind of surface level describing a problem that I have. One of the biggest things that holds me back personally, if we want to get like really deep, is the fact that I don't want to share my negative feelings with people. I feel like I'm like the therapist of a group. I like helping people solve problems. I don't like being the one with problems. I like helping people solve problems. And I feel like I'm always the problem solver of the group. And so when people come to me and they have a problem, I'm like, okay, here's X, Y, and Z. Here we go. Let's solve it. And I'm really good at that. And so I think I find it hard to open up to people about my struggles because I don't want people to think I don't want people to think I'm like a fraud or like an imposter and be like, how can you help people solve their problems when you can't even solve your own? Anyway, so something I've struggled with up until now and continue to struggle with and continue to work on is my ability to share problems with people. You know, like I'm very open about my life. Like I'm quite an open person. I'm happily talk about anything. I'm very open-minded. But my ability to share struggles within my own life. Anyway, long story long, I was talking on the surface about a problem that I was having. And my friend B, she said to me, she was like, Polly, we've lived together for months now and I hardly know you. Like, I don't know what's going on in your life. I don't know you. And that I kind of look at and think I was keeping myself on the outside. Like, I didn't believe that people, in this case her, but it wasn't her, it was just in general, I didn't believe that people were interested in the problems that were going on in my life. I felt like the only reason people valued me was because I was good at solving problems and I have got the gift of the gab, like I'm really good at talking about things. And I felt like that was the only reason people valued me. But because of that, I kind of kept myself on the outside and I didn't share any of my problems. And that created this wall and barrier between my friends and I, because if you don't know anything about someone, you can't create and build real intimacy and connection with them, right? And so if you feel like you're kind of left out and you feel like you're like don't have connections with people, you always feel like you don't fully have a connection, ask yourself, like, are you letting yourself connect with people? Are you letting yourself build intimacy with people? Are you allowing yourself to be in? Or do you kind of sit on the sidelines? Because it's easier to sit on the sidelines, of course it is. It's easier to sit and be kind of jaded but vindicated and be like, oh yeah, but everyone just ignores me and I just never fit in and I just haven't found my people. Sometimes it is you haven't found your people, okay? Like if you haven't found your people and the people around you don't have like-minded interests and like-minded values and they're just like they're not the type of people you want to be. Like if someone was like, oh, you're really like XYZ, if that's not a compliment to you and the people around you aren't like-minded and aligned with you, then yeah, you probably are going to feel left out and you're probably going to feel like you don't fit in with them. And maybe that means you still need to look for your people. And sometimes it's that, but sometimes it's that you don't let yourself make these people your people. I think everyone wants to feel connected and everyone wants that feeling. You know when you meet someone and you just like connect so deeply and you're like, wow, we must have been friends in a different lifetime, because like you just have that connection and you're like, damn, like how does this work? I recently met someone like this and we met at a festival. We've only met in total twice now. As soon as I met her, we'd probably spent 10 minutes together and I was like, damn, how does this girl already feel like a good friend to me? Like that's crazy, because that doesn't happen to me very often. And so everyone wants that feeling. And so know that people are looking for that, and it's very, very seldom that people are actively leaving you out and it's like that people aren't letting you in. Most of the time, it's that you're not letting yourself in and that you're keeping yourself on the outskirts. And so you need to find the reason why you're keeping yourself on the outskirts, whether you don't believe you're worthy of being there. Maybe you're scared to be vulnerable and scared to be open, like whatever it is, you have to find that out. And then once you do, and you can work on that, then I think you'll find naturally you'll feel less and less like you don't fit in. And then when you find yourself in situations where maybe you are kind of like you actually don't fit in, you can kind of find it funny and be like, oh, this doesn't really matter. Like I don't feel like super like this isn't bringing up like childhood trauma of being sat on the bench and told I don't want to be your best friend anymore, because it doesn't really matter, because you know truthfully that you do fit and you have a place in the world. Maybe that's what it is. You know the phrase like everything is everything, like how you do one thing is how you do everything. Maybe if you don't feel like a valid, worthy human being in the world, that just translates into not feeling like a valid, worthy human being in friendships and in relationships with people. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's what it is for me anyway. Please submit your favorite journal prompts to this jar. If you get to the end of this episode, tell me when you put your Christmas decorations up. Like how early is too early to put your Christmas decorations up? They better be up by now. If your Christmas decorations aren't up by now, I think you might have a little case of the Grinchies. See you tomorrow for the next episode of Podmas. Love you loads. Tell me when you put your decks up. Mwah.